This tutorial is an introduction to the mapping features in PC Travel version 2. I'm going to show you how easy it is to edit run data on a map and get the runs ready to be used in studies. This is the first screen you see when you run PC Travel. I'm going to quickly get to the mapping screen, so if you haven't seen PC Travel before, you may want to take a look at one of the other tutorials that walks you through the basic operation of the software. So I'm going to start a new travel time study by clicking on the button on the Startup Options screen. And then I'm going to add some runs that I want to edit. I've already created a study group called 56th Street Northbound, and there are 4 runs that were collected out in the field. I'm going to select those 4 runs and then click the Select button. You can see that these runs were done in October of 2007. They're about 15,000 feet long. All the runs are about the same length, which is normally a good sign. And this is part of an after study that was done on this street. Now these runs are just the runs that were collected in the field, so I want to edit them because they need to be cleaned up a little bit before they can be used in studies. So I'm going to click on the Map button. Now the software takes a look at the very first run and looks at the very first point of that run and puts that point in the center of the map. So you should see the area of your city or county or whatever around where that data was collected. Now let's take a look at this screen, since presumably you haven't seen it before. At the top of the screen are the list of runs that we can select to plot. And you get a little bit of information about each of the runs just to make sure you know which one you're looking at. On the right hand side are a few options that you can use when you plot the points. One option is to plot all the points. Another option is to plot every 3rd, 5th, or 10th point. Sometimes that's useful if the points are getting in the way of each other. Normally you're going to plot all the points. You can offset the icons because if you plot more than one run without any offset, they tend to plot on top of one another, and it gets a little bit confusing to separate out the runs. With this offset icon factor, which goes from 0 to 5, the points will be plotted a little bit offset from each other, and they're easier to distinguish. I'll show you how that looks in a minute. And you can also color code the speeds of the points that are plotted on the screen. Here we have that option selected, and speed 1 is going to be anything from 0 to 10 miles per hour, and that's going to be plotted with red points. Speed 2 is anything from 10 to 35 miles an hour, and that's going to be plotted in green. And speed 3 is 35 to 99, or basically 35 to the fastest vehicle out there, and that will be plotted in yellow. The color is often useful to see areas of congestion and just to zero in on points that you might want to take a look at. At the bottom of the screen are several buttons. You can zoom in and zoom out by just clicking on the various buttons. So I just zoomed out. I'm going to zoom in. You can update the map, which is the way that you plot the points. First you select the one or more runs, and then you click on the Update Map button. And you can also print whatever is on the map, whatever is visible on the map, you can print, and that can be useful sometimes. You could also maneuver around the map using these 4 icons that are slightly above the map. If you select the magnifying glass, you can zoom in on a specific area. So it's very simple. You just drag a box around the area that you want to see, and you zoom in. And now notice as you zoom in, you bring up more detail in the map. Here you can see smaller streets. When you zoom out, those streets will disappear. You can also use the hand icon to move the map around. It's very simple. Just hold the left button down on your mouse, drag the whole map, and it moves with you. And if you want to select a point on the map, you'll use this icon, the little arrow, and I'll show you that in a minute. All right, so let's plot some data. So I'm going to go up to the top of the screen. I'm going to click on the first run, put a check mark there, and then I'm going to click on the Update Map button at the bottom of the screen. Now the software plots all of the data points in that run on the map, and you can see this smear on the screen, which is where the data was collected. I'm going to zoom in so we can see what that looks like. And you can see that it's composed of lots of dots. Every point is 1 second of data. And you can see that you can see the various speeds of the vehicles of this particular run just by looking at the dots. Now, one of the things that you almost always will do is you're going to be trimming the run so that it starts and ends at the places that you want it to start and end. It's often more convenient to actually start the run in the field when the vehicle is not on the main road and driving. You could be in a parking lot with the vehicle stopped, and you set the software, the GPS to laptop software, get it going, and then merge into traffic and actually do the driving. So that's what happened here, and we're at the end of a run, and I'm going to zoom in a lot tighter so I can see what I'm doing. I'm going to select the arrow key, the arrow icon, and I'm going to click on the point that's right at the end of this run. You can see that the car slowed down when it got to this intersection, made a left turn, and then actually pulled into a parking lot to end the run. Now, when I clicked on that point, a few buttons popped up at the bottom. One is Insert Node, which we'll use in a little while. Another is Trim End or Trim Start. In this case, the software knows that this is near the end of the run, so it pops up the Trim End button. You can also move points. Every once in a while, you'll find the point is just obviously out of alignment from where it should be, and you can move them. And there's also a button where you can click, and the software will show you a Google Maps view of that section of the roadway, and we'll play with that in a minute. Also, when I clicked on that point, a new window called Point Stats opened up that gives me information about the point that I've selected. In this case, it's run number 1. It's point number 362. Remember, each point is a second, so this is 362 seconds into the run. At this point, I was going 6 miles an hour, and I was heading at 321 degrees. The heading tells me the direction that the vehicle is going for each point. 360 or 0 is due north, 180 is due south. So by looking at that point, I can tell that I was going north, and north is up in this case. It also shows the time, the latitude and longitude, and the HDOP, which is a number that is used to tell roughly how good that GPS data point is. It should be around 1 or 2 or 3. If it gets up to 10 or 11 or 12, that implies the GPS receiver wasn't getting a very good signal at that time, and you may want to check to see if those points look reasonable. Normally they are, but every once in a while that will help you find why the data looks a little bit off. Now notice that the lines don't go right on top of the road. That's very typical. There's a little bit of error in the GPS, and there's a little bit of error in the mapping, the base maps that are used. And so when you plot them, it's not that important that they actually line up on top of the road. It's very clear that these data points are associated with this road, and that's really all you need to know. So we're going to trim the end of this run because I'm not interested in these data points here. So I'm going to click on the Trim End button. And the software starts at the very end of the data and marks each of the points for deletion. They're not actually deleted yet, but they will be later on. So I've deleted the end of this run, and now I want to zoom out and then zoom in on the beginning of this data. And we're going to select this point, and we want to get rid of all the points before this because we really want to start our study at Puritan Road, this road right here. So I'm going to click on Trim Start. And the software starts at the point I selected and then works its way back to the very first point, marking those points as deletion, and they're put with little white circles. So now I've trimmed the end and I've trimmed the start, and for this one run I'm also going to mark nodes that are going to be used in the analysis later on. And to do that, I simply move my way up the street until I find an intersection that I want to use. And the very first one will be this one here at River Hills. And I'm going to select the point that is the first point that's after the actual intersection. So I'm going to select this one here, and then I'm going to click on the Insert Node. And that puts a star at that point. So I know that that is the point I want to use as a node. You generally want to select the point that is after the intersection because you want as much of the delay associated with the intersection to be included. So I'm going to move up again. We're going to find this is another intersection of interest. I'm going to select the one point after. I'm going to hit Insert Node. And I'm going to keep doing this for the rest of this run. Now I only have to do this once for each direction. You don't have to do it for every single run, which would be a little bit tedious. So for every run, I will be trimming the runs, but only on one run in each direction do I actually have to mark the nodes. Now, if you've used PC Travel in the past, you've probably collected the nodes in the field with every run. You don't have to do that with this software, which is a major feature. You don't mark any nodes in the field. You simply drive, which is much safer and easier to teach other people. And then you mark one run in each direction, and that's all. So it's much simpler, much faster. I just have a couple more to do. Sometimes it can be a little tricky to pick the point and not the road. A couple more. And I think we're near the end here. And you don't have to mark nodes at the very end or the very beginning. So now I've trimmed the end and start of this run. I've marked the nodes, and now I'm ready to save this run, this edited run. And to do that, I double click on the name of the run at the top of the screen. You can see that the cursor changes to a flashing bar. And I'm going to mark the fact that I've trimmed this run by putting a T there. And I'm going to mark the fact that I've added nodes to this run by putting an N there. And then I'm going to save this run. And the software asks me, do you want to save this run in the study group that's active? I say yes. So now that run has been edited and saved. Now I can go ahead and do the same thing for the rest of the runs. Now I don't have to mark the nodes, I just have to trim. So I'll do one, give you an idea of how that works, and then that should be enough for you to figure out how to do it the rest of the way. All right, so we're going to uncheck that one because I'm not interested in that anymore. And we're going to check the second run. Going to hit Update Map. And you can see a very similar looking run. And I'm going to select one of these points. It's not absolutely critical which one you select. I'm going to trim the end. Remember, each of these points is only a second. And so if your travel time calculations are off by a second or two, that doesn't really affect your statistics in any significant way. So you don't have to be really anal about everything that you do with this. So we're going to zoom out. Zoom back in. Select the point. Trim the start. And now it's trimmed all those points. See, all of them are done. You can see that this was started off-road as well. This is a little parking lot as well. So the driver started the vehicle in a parking lot, then merged into traffic and drove, and from that point he never had to touch the keyboard of the laptop until he pulled into the parking lot on the top side at the end of the run. That makes it very easy and safe. Alright, so we've trimmed the end and we've trimmed the start. We're going to save this by double clicking on it, and we're just going to put a T there to mark that it's been trimmed. We're not going to put an N because we don't have to mark the nodes for this course. We've already done that, and we're going to save it. And we want to save it. So that's the procedure. I would do the same thing for the next two runs, and they would end up as trimmed runs. And then those runs are ready to be used in a study. All right. So now let me just show you a couple of other features of the map screen, just to give you an idea of what else you can do with this. Let's say I wanted to show all four runs at one time. I just select all four of them, and I'm going to have the offset icon factor at 0, just to show you what it looks like. So we're going to click the Update Map button, and we get all of the runs. Let's zoom out just a little bit. So there's actually 4 runs there, but when you zoom in, it's a little bit hard to separate them. You can see there's a 1 there, there's a 3 there, there's a 2 there, but you don't get any good continuity in the runs. So let's keep them all selected, but let's change the offset factor to a 4. And now I'm going to click the Update Map again. Now you can see that the runs are clearly distinguishable. Now they're not on top of the road by any means anymore, but that's okay. You can still get a sense for what these runs look like. Now you can see the 2 runs, 1 and 2, that we trimmed, and then you can see 3 and 4 have not been trimmed yet. And it's very obvious to see what the pattern that those 4 runs look like. So that's the use of the offset icon. If you want to see how all 4 runs look, sometimes you'll put all 4 runs on the map and one of them will look very odd. And it may be that something went wrong with that run in the field, and you can go and take a closer look at it. These runs all look nice and clean. You can see that the speed of this vehicle, of this run, was different. The green, the yellow is faster, so for whatever reason, the driver was able to go a little bit faster on these points. Here's some congestion that's mid-block. There's no intersection there, so they ran into something. This is a major intersection, so they probably just ran into a red light that was just starting to clear. So you could get an idea of what the traffic was doing just by looking at this map. Now, if one of the points is out of place, none of these are, but let's just say that this point wasn't where it's supposed to be, I could click on the Move button, and you see that the cursor changes to a plus sign, and then I just move it to where I want it to be, and I click, and it moves the point there. Now that's not very good because obviously that's out of place, so I'm just going to select it again, and we'll put it back roughly where it belongs. It still leaves the square there, but there's not really a point there. The final feature I want to show you on the mapping screen is how to show a Google Map view of the route where you're collecting your data. So I'm going to select a point, and I'm going to select the point here at this intersection of Bush Boulevard and the 56th Street where we collected our data. And then I'm going to click on the Google button at the bottom of the screen. Now, assuming you have Google Earth loaded on your computer, the software will run Google Earth and then zoom in to the spot that we selected on the screen. And you can see here that this is a very large intersection, and the road that we were on is this north-south road. And while we're in Google Earth, you can do the normal commands that are available in Google Earth. So we can zoom out and take a look more at the route, and you can zoom in on any one portion. So if you see some interesting bottlenecks or data on the map that doesn't make a lot of sense, sometimes looking at the actual aerial view of that area will give you a clue as to what was going on. When you're through with Google, you just exit the program, and it brings you right back to PC Travel. So that's pretty much a summary of what you can see on the mapping software. We've gone through and we've edited the runs, we've trimmed the front and end of all the runs, and we've added the nodes to one of them. So now we're going to go back to PC Travel. And I just very quickly want to show you what you would do next. Again, there is a tutorial that goes into this in more detail, but while you're here, you should see exactly what you do with the data that you edited. So these are the original runs that we started with. So we don't want those. We want the edited runs that we created on the map. So I'm going to click on the New button to start a new study, and I'm going to click the Add Runs button to add more runs. And now this time I'm going to select the edited runs. That's the R1 with the TN, meaning it's been trimmed and nodes have been added. Number 2 T, number 3 T, and number 4 T. Now we didn't do 3 and 4 in this tutorial, but I did it on the side before I went into this section. So I'm going to call up those runs, and now these are ready to continue to create into a study. I'm not going to go into that in detail right now. If you're not sure about how to do that, then check the other tutorials or check the manual. But I hope this little introduction to the mapping has given you an idea of the power that's available with the maps and how much easier it is to deal with nodes and runs than in previous versions of PC Travel. Thank you.